So, I was thinking about how Facebook has changed how people pose for pictures. Now, there's a couple reasons why I've been thinking a lot about this topic recently. The first reason is a couple weeks ago, while I was on my commute to work, on the radio there was a discussion on this very topic about how Facebook has changed the way people pose for pictures. Now, unfortunately, I only caught a few minutes of this hour-long discussion, so I didn't get to really hear the in-depth interview and discussion on this topic. However, the second reason why I've been thinking a lot about this topic recently is a lot recently while I've been out with family and friends, and there's been at a lot of different events such as the fireworks, fun events, things like that. There's been a lot of people that have cameras, and I've heard a lot of people talk about when they've taken pictures, about how they're going to post those pictures on Facebook. And there's even been talk about, oh, what pose would be good for Facebook, or when they catch their friends in a funny pose, or maybe even an embarrassing pose, they've threatened that they're going to post those pictures to Facebook. And I've even caught myself at times, either when other people have taken pictures of me, or I've taken self-portrait pictures. I've thought in the back of my mind, oh, how can I make this picture look good on Facebook? So there's definitely been a lot of thought for myself, with myself, and how I pose for Facebook, or not pose for Facebook. And I've definitely thought about how others and how everyone these days seems to not just pose just for picture's sake, but pose for a picture on Facebook. I can remember a time, and it hasn't been that long ago, when people just posed for pictures. Another aspect of how Facebook and social media and computer technology has changed photography and how people pose for pictures is how people keep those pictures and what they do with them after they've taken those pictures. It wasn't that long ago when people actually had physical copies of pictures. Now, usually most people kept them in things like photo albums. Now, this is an example of a photo album and how people kept their pictures. Now with Facebook and computers, people usually just store their pictures on the computer or post them on Facebook, not actually having a physical copy of pictures. So that's just another example of how Facebook and social media. One thing I want to make clear with this video is I'm not saying that how Facebook has changed how people post for pictures is a good thing or a bad thing. I just want to explore how Facebook has changed how people post for pictures. Now, I see, and many other people see, photography and how people post for pictures as an art form. So Facebook has definitely changed that art form, especially in the last few years. Now, I have to admit, another interest that I really have a lot of interest in is history. And pictures and photography has been around for almost 200 years. So history and photography, those two topics go really well together. So I want to take some time in this video to take a look at the history of photography, as well as those poses, and see how they have changed throughout history. So if we take a look at history and the development of photography and picture poses, if you look at the beginning, around 1814 to 1816, a French guy by the name of Joseph, and I can't pronounce his last name, but it's Niepce. He took the first photograph with what he called a camera obscura. And this is the first actual picture. Now this process was quite long. It took 8 hours to develop this very first picture with the camera obscura. And the picture actually faded a few hours after that. So getting later into the 1800s, it was about 1841 that William Talbot patented a process to make the developing pictures quite a lot faster than 8 hours. And it was in 1843 when the first advertisement using a photograph was made in Philadelphia in the States. And it wasn't until 1859 that a panoramic camera was patented in Sutton in the United Kingdom. And after that, through the rest of the 1800s, there was a few developments for the camera. But once again, taking a look at how people posed in the 1800s. One thing I've definitely noticed in pictures from the 1800s was that it seemed like no one smiled. Most people were just stone cold, stone faced. Maybe they were a little afraid of what the camera was. I mean, for most people in the 1800s, even in wealthier countries where this technology was taking place, most people wouldn't have seen a camera, and they were lucky to come across one. So yeah, that there could have been a little fear there. Maybe they weren't sure what was going to happen. So this is just my guess as to why there was almost no one smiled for cameras. Another thing I've noticed about pictures of this era was most of them were taking place like during work with people's normal activities, and it was just like a group picture. And yeah, that's basically what happened then. The next era that I want to take a look at is from 1900 to 1920. Now, it was in this time that there was a lot of advances in camera technology, the turn of the century. The process was a lot quicker, and there was more permanent pictures. In 1900, the first mass-marketed camera called the Browning was made in 1900, so that was pretty significant, and so more people definitely had access to cameras, and it was becoming more commonplace, more of a chance that people had access to a camera. Another significant thing that happened in this time was between 1913 and 1914, the first 35mm film was developed. Now that is one of the biggest significant changes to film. Actually, for pretty much all of the 20th century, there was a use of the 35mm film. That's what I remember using as a kid, and even in the early years of my adulthood. Now going back to the poses of this time, one thing I've noticed is there's still the pretty standard picture poses from the 1800s. There still wasn't really any smiles. I mean, even though the technology had made big leaps and bounds since the early days, there were still a lot of people that were very new to this type of technology. So you still had the traditional group photos where there wasn't really anyone smiling, still a little unsure what to do, how to pose. So yeah. So really in this time there wasn't too many changes in photography. The next period I want to talk about is the 1920s. So there was some significant advances in camera technology during this time. One of the biggest ones is the electric company General Electric. You probably all know about General Electric. But in 1927, they developed the first flash bulb for the camera. So that was definitely significant because it allowed more pictures taken with more light, and also allowed people to take pictures in dark, which is pretty significant. But even with these change, how people pose for pictures still hadn't changed that much in comparison to the 1800s. There's a few people were starting to smile. But by far, the vast majority of people were still pretty hesitant to smile. Pictures still had that stock pose. Maybe if you had a picture of about 10 people, maybe 1 out of the 10 would smile, and all the rest would still be stone-faced, pretty sad-looking. So yeah, that was the 1920s. Still a lot of changes in photography.